Hello and welcome to Forever Cricket on Forever Sports. And the Proteas are currently in Ireland for what will be a 3-match ODI series, followed by a couple of T20s as well. And look, whilst it's Ireland and maybe not the biggest opponents, the Proteas are on the up. After capping off a very, very impressive T20 series victory over the West Indies, as well as the first Test match series win, I think in about 3-4 years for the Proteas. It's a side filling with confidence, and I think Ireland are actually quite a nice opponent to be able to try and sort of build a little bit of momentum. We are talking about a little bit of a new dawn in South African cricket with 2 new captains in both formats who are both, sort of moving forward now, started with victories, and I think that it'll be nice to sort of start getting a little bit of continuity, start building for the future. So, a 3-match ODI series for Ireland, there's no easy games, and I think tomorrow you probably go off with your best sort of side. And I think the hope within the Proteas is to try and get sort of 2-0 done, and then, you can look to bring in a couple of other players as well. But it's also definitely, it's definitely a format, we need to start preparing for 2023 World Cup, so we need to start sort of gauging sort of where we are, which players we'd like to start coming in and playing more, which players you want to start giving more opportunities more and stuff like that. So, it'll be an interesting to sort of see what Mark Boucher goes with. I'll give you what my sort of predicted 11 or possible 11 will be. But, Ireland are not, it's a side you expect to beat, but this is a side that's beaten England before, and they've had some really good encounters. It's a side that's growing, and it'll be quite interesting to see how Curtis Comfort goes, the former South African who's done very well for Ireland. But there's some good players to watch for the Lions. The likes of Josh Little has done very well. Andy Balbirnie, the captain's been very good. It's their first ODI series without Kevin O'Brien, the legendary all-rounder. What a player he was for Ireland. But there's some good players. Paul Sterling's a good player. William Porterfield's been very good. Been a bad run of form at the moment. He's a very good player, and he's been a huge sort of presence for Ireland for a long time. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this match. Actually, I really, really like ODI cricket. I can get behind T20 cricket, but I wouldn't say I get super excited about T20 cricket, whereas ODI cricket I can really get excited about. Obviously, Test matches is the creme de la creme, the best format. But ODI I really like because it's still a game which could sort of ebb and flow as the innings go. You can go off to a really good start. You've got middle order, you've got presence. You need to have anchors. You need to bowl well in spells. You've got spells at the beginning and the end. You've got death bowling as well. It's a really, really interesting format. I really do like it. I think it's long enough to test all your sort of skills, but also short enough, obviously, to still fit the day and get a result. So it's probably my, it's my second best favorite format. So I really look forward to it. In terms of South Africans, in terms of some injury news, there will be no Sisanda Magala this series. He's been ruled out with an injury, which is quite tough. I think, especially for the T20s, I would have really liked to have seen him in the T20s, probably ahead of Lungi Ngidi. Credit to Lungi Ngidi, who really came back in that last T20 against the West Indies and put in a really good shift. But I think that, Sisanda Magala has shown year after year after year how good he is at the death. And the biggest problem is sort of bowling him before that. But literally, if you have you kind of need to give him an over to try and sort of hit his straps in that sort of 10 to 12 over period. But, if he can offer you 2 or 3 brilliant death overs towards the end of the innings, that's exactly what we want him for. So he's an interesting bowler, is Sisanda Magala, where you kind of need to sort of probably bowl him in sort of 8th or 9th to give him that over to sort of make sure that his rhythm's all right. And then you bring him for sort of, ideally, your 18th and 20th of overs. And that's where you get the 3 overs out of him from. Because he really is a tremendous death bowler. But unfortunately, he'll be not part of the squad. Vera Hendricks has been retained, and he will form part of that squad. And in terms of the players who I think we'll probably see tomorrow, I reckon that this is more or less how we're going to line up. Or at least I hope that this is how we're going to line up. Because I'd like to see a pretty much full strength side for the first one. So Quinton de Kock, Aiden Markram at the top of the order. We saw that against Pakistan with those two starting and Temba Bavuma coming in 3. I think Temba Bavuma is the perfect number 3. I think he's a very good player that can rotate the strike. He can be a very good anchor for the innings. He's not necessarily a power hitter. He's got the capacity to find the boundary. We saw that a little bit in the West Indies. Probably in lukewarm form, I'd say. I wouldn't say he's in bad form. I wouldn't say he had a terrible T20 series. He had 2, very nice knocks. One particular was very good. He's had a very good start to his ODI career. So I think that, as captain, I think number 3 is a nice spot for him. I think, if you can try and get off to a positive start with Aiden Markram and Quinton de Kock, but I think Bavuma's a nice, very technically solid batsman to come in if they need to, if we lose an early wicket, he needs to come in and sort of block an end. But he's also very good at rotating the strike. And him and Quinton de Kock bat very, very well together. And I think because he's so good between the wickets as well, him and Rassie van der Dussen in the middle overs will be a very good couple because Rassie van der Dussen is somebody that sort of takes a while to get going and sort of catches up later. So he kind of goes to the strike rate sort of 60 to 70 for a long time. But very, very often when he comes off, he averages something stupid like 70 in ODI cricket. after like 20 ODIs as well. So it's not just a case of you played 5. But Rassie van der Dussen is somebody that sort of accelerates towards the end. So I think Temba Bavuma is the perfect sort of player for him. He's the perfect sort of foil for Quinton de Kock and Rassie van der Dussen. And that's not to say that he's not good enough to be his own sort of player. But, I think he's somebody who's very good at reading situations. And, sometimes you need that player who will just sit there and rotate the strike. And, if he's rotating the strike, 2 or 3 times in an over, that's 3 runs every over, and he can sort of tick it over. So, I think he'll go 3. Rassie van der Dussen is a given at 4. You usually have your best batsman at 4, and he is currently our best batsman. There's no doubt about that. I'd really, really like to see Kyle Verreynne at 5. I think that he's got an ODI 50 against Australia. He's an up-and-coming player. He's very, very talented. He didn't get any opportunity in the West Indies. I'm bored of sticking with Heinrich Klaasen. That's who we were going with in that number 5 position for the Australia series. I'm done with that. I'm sorry. I think that when he got dropped, I was quite happy to see him get dropped, and I just think that if that's gonna be a position which is up for grabs, give it to the youngsters. Let Kyle Verreynne have a go. I think something like Ghana Malan, which people are saying that they really want to see him. I think he comes in for that 3rd ODI, and we probably lose Quinton de Kock. I would look at losing Quinton de Kock, maybe even the 2nd and 3rd ODI. We know what Quinton de Kock gives us. He's in phenomenal form, so obviously you're not going to drop him. But if you want to sort of see what life is like without Quinton de Kock, if he gets injured for something like that, then Janne Malan comes in the top of the order. Kyle Verreynne stays at 5, and he takes the gloves. I think it's easy. And David Miller at 6. David Miller's a very frustrating player because he can come off and he's sort of in a bit of a lukewarm form. Unfortunately, he comes in for that finishing role. And the reality is, a bit like an opener in test matches, you fail more than you succeed in that role. If he's got 10 innings, chances are he'll come off maybe 3 or 4 out of the 10. But that's not just him. That's most finishers, because it's a very high risk, high reward job. You come in with 10 overs to go and you expect it to accelerate from the get-go. I think, if he was somebody, I think when he was batting at number 5 or number 4, it's one of the highest ODI averages, ever, if you look at it, because, he didn't get a lot of cricket there. But when he does give the time, he plays a very different role. So he's good enough, if they do lose a couple of wickets, to play a stabilising role. But he's a very good finisher. I still back David Miller. I'm a very, very big David Miller fan. You can look at maybe sort of deploying Janne Malan as well, but I think middle order needs a bit of work, and I wouldn't have Heinrich Klaasen. The only thing I'd change, if you may be looking to get David Miller out, is another all-rounder, and then you can go with a spinning all-rounder in your Bjorn Fortuin or George Linder, or you can bring in a seaming all-rounder in the likes of Vian Mulder, or you can bring Keshav Maharaj, for example. But Adila Petlakwa has always been the sort of go-to ODI all-rounder. He's got very, very good ODI stats, very good ODI career. He's done quite a lot with both the bat and the ball, actually, at ODI cricket. I think if you look at him compared to even like your Chris Morrises and stuff like that, he compares quite well in ODI cricket. And what I think is very frustrating is people always sort of equate one sort of format with the other. They'll say, oh, we had a bad test series, therefore we mustn't play. It's a completely different game. It's almost like a different sport. T20 cricket is so different to test match cricket, which is so different to ODI cricket. So just because they've had a bad, test series doesn't mean they suddenly should get dropped for the ODI team. Just because they've had a bad T20 series doesn't mean they should get dropped for the ODI side. That's why I think like Lungi and Ngidi come straight on. Kagiso Rabada at 8. It's a little bit of a long tail, but I think Kagiso Rabada is starting to become a decent number 8, where he can chip in with 20, 30 runs. He's good enough. We know he's good enough to chip in with those runs towards the back end of the innings. But Anoop Nokia, Lungi Ngidi, and Tabraiz Shamsi really doesn't give us a lot of bowling. So, if you were to drop Lungi Ngidi and bring in, a Vian Mulder or Bjorn Hendricks is the other seamer, or Lizard Williams. We haven't seen much of him. But, if Magala's there, he could also hit a long ball. Obviously, a little bit more batting. Or else you can go with Maharaj ahead of Tabraiz Shamsi in the ODIs. But Shamsi's been phenomenal for in the T20. And whilst as I said, you don't sort of equate them, I think somebody like that is got so much confidence in him at the moment that give him a go in the first ODI. Let's see what he can do. He's sort of finally seems to be sort of hitting his straps and finding his form in most formats. So Keshav Maharaj is a nice option. If you want to play 2 spinners, you can go Kesh and Tabraiz Shamsi. You can go Kesh and George Linder. But, I'm going to stick with Lungi Ngidi in the ODIs. Remember last year he had that brilliant over against Australia where he defended, I think it was something like 8 or 7 runs. You can see there's 8 or 7 runs. It was tremendous. Anoop Nokia is one of the leading wicket takers across all formats in the world this year. So he's not going to get dropped. So that's the 11 I'd like to see. Let me know what you would like to see down in the comments below. I think it's got everything there. I think we've got power hitting at the top. I think we've got good finishers in the middle. And I think we've got a nice balanced bowling lineup. I don't think we'll need much spin. But if we want to go 2 spinners, you've got Aiden Marker that can offer you some overs. So he can turn an arm if you want him to. Let's see what happens. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Smash like on there, subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you think is going to happen in the series. We're going to do 3-0, 2-1. What kind of chest are Ireland? Fun fact, after beating West Indies 3-2, West Indies went and beat Australia yesterday. So I think I was very chuffed at the end of that T20 series. I think that we've got a lot of confidence in the squad, and I'm hoping they can really sort of come in and play some nice, attractive cricket. Let's be nice and aggressive tomorrow. Let's go after Ireland. Let's go put them under pressure early. Let's, assert our authority on things like we used to. Something like Graham Smith was so good at asserting his authority on a game. Dale Steyn, Morne Morkel, we were aggressive. We used to play very aggressive cricket. Kyle Abbott's aggressive cricket. Let's go and be aggressive. Kagiso Rabada and Arnold Nakia, they've got the base to be aggressive if we bowl first. With Quinton de Kock and Aidan Markham, we can attack them early with the bat. I would like to see us be nice and aggressive. I don't want to see cautious. I want to see how... Look at what Owen Morgan did with England. He said we all play risky, high risk, high reward cricket. We want to be positive. We want to play an attractive Brad, and they won a World Cup. Yes, a little bit of technicalities, but that is a good formula to follow. So let's hope that we try and go with that. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys after the game for a review. We'll try and get into the press conference with Tim Bavuma as well and try and get that up as well. Smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. My name is Steven, and I'll chat to you guys soon.